Are you gonna nibble me? I think somebody wants some lettuce. Somebody wants some lettuce. Look at those red eyes. So intense.
Let's make a guinea pig cage for Mr. Baggins and Ranger. I've already worked out some sketches here. I'm gonna work basically with PVC and Coroplast for the most part right now. I want to build something that takes up more vertical space than horizontal, so it doesn't take up too much of my desk work area. So I'm gonna try building some stackable units and then a connector ramp so that they're able to get between the houses. PVC is great because it's an inexpensive material and it's also pretty easy to work with. And some of you will be glad to notice that I did finally get some PVC cutters. I did get the thicker PVC by mistake, the thicker wall, so it's a little bit harder to work with than the PVC that I was using for the Witch King. But it does make for a nice sturdy surface to drill into later on, so in the end it may have been a good decision. So I probably should have just bought more connectors, but I wanted to try flattening out the ends and whatnot and be able to screw the pieces together in some areas just to see how that works. So I don't have to cut the PVC into quite as many pieces for the cross parts. In the end, I would say this was not the best decision, but sometimes you don't know that until you try. So I'm just heating up areas, and once you get the PVC hot, you can just squish it. And then if you hold it there with a clamp, then you can have a nice flat area to make pieces fit together. Again, this would probably just have been a lot easier buying more connectors, but you know. Anyways, the PVC here is so thick that I did kind of burn it a little bit in order to get it hot enough to flatten out. So it's definitely a lot easier with the thinner PVC. And I'm just using the duster spray can to cool it off a little bit because it takes way too long. So that's how my joints are going to work for kind of the front panels of these house things. And then just drilling through and screwing everything together to make a 3-part frame for the front. So the side pieces are going to be windows, and then the center one is going to have an access door. The main problem with the way that I tried doing this with heat molding flat areas is that it did introduce a lot of variations and just slight inconsistencies in the straightness of pieces. So it made it all just a little bit wonky, and I had to do a little playing around to get it all to fit together properly in the end. So it was a little bit of a challenge, and I wouldn't do it that way again, but it's fine. So I do need to repeat that process for all 3 cages. So I've already heat molded all the pieces for everything, cut everything to size to have the feet and then the center area, and then some top cross pieces that will support the litter tray for the cage that goes on top. And I'm leaving a space below the lower cross piece because that's where the litter tray is going to slide in and out. I really do want these cages to be easy to clean. I don't have a lot of time to spend, cleaning out a fancy cage that's not too easy to keep up. So it should be pretty easy if this all works okay. The key is going to be getting everything to be the right size, so it's a snug fit when the tray is slid in, but also not too hard to pull out without knocking the cage over or something. So that's how everything stacks, and instead of gluing these, I want the flexibility to change my mind later if this doesn't end up working out exactly how I hoped. So I'm just screwing the pieces in. It's nice to have the option later on to take it all apart if I need to and stack it differently or whatever. So that's an option for making a sturdy but fairly temporary hold. And that's it for now on the frame. It's all put together. So let's go ahead and make some trays for these. And I'm just using your regular old 4mm Coroplast. I got this large sheet from my local home improvement store for about $15. And it was enough to make all 3 trays, just barely. I will say it would have been better to have these pieces oriented the other way. So the easy to cut and easy to bend flutes were on the longer edges, but I didn't do it that way because otherwise I would have had to buy a second sheet of Coroplast. I didn't really want to do that. So I did it the hard way, and my folds along the front and back are a little bit less neat for it, but it worked out okay in the end. The height on these trays is a little bit low because I really want to be able to see into the guinea pig cage and watch them because they're adorable to watch. So I made them kind of lower than maybe was the best idea. Well, we'll figure that out later though. They do slide in okay, but I noticed there's a bit of a gap here in the front, probably again because of the way that it's oriented with the flutes running front to back instead of left to right. but that's okay, I can fix it. I'm just going to make the tray a little bit less deep. So I'm just kind of trimming the flaps lower. That does give me a little bit more to work with on the front also. So that top edge, maybe I can do something a little bit nicer than just having the flutes open to above. So I'm just going to put some more fold lines on there. And by the way, when you see me, scoring it there, I have the blade inside. I'm using the metal part to score it so that it can bend, especially on cross flutes. It's quite challenging to get it to bend nicely. But if you score it a few times, it works okay. And now I'm going to use some 14 gauge wire to make it a little bit stiffer at the front and give me the option of kind of bending it a little bit to make sure that it fits in well and doesn't bow out in the center like it was doing before. Gorilla Tape is your best friend with this stuff. It works quite well with Coroplast. And I'm just going to go ahead and cover the whole front in the Gorilla Tape just to kind of clean it up because I've got some old score lines there that kind of punctured through a little bit by mistake. And that's maybe not the prettiest, but I can go ahead and, bling it up later on. But for now, I just really need it to be functional because the guinea pigs are at this point, as you can kind of see in the background there, they're on my floor on some towels and litter and whatnot because I have nowhere else to put them until this cage is done. So I'm really just working at the fastest rate I possibly can. I'm going to cover up the ends now with some chicken wire. This is some scrap that I scavenged out of somebody's trash, so hey, free is awesome and it's just about the right size, but you definitely with the chicken wire do want to fold down any sharp edges, make sure you're not going to cut yourself, make sure the piggies aren't going to cut themselves. I'm also just putting some plastic over the window areas. This is just some scrap plastic I had lying around. I'll do something nicer and prettier later on, but it will work for now. Next, we need to build a way for the piggies to get from one cage to another. Now, putting a ramp on the inside, it just takes up so much space, so I'm going to try doing an outer ramp. Still working with Coroplast here. I'm going to use a couple of different kinds. I've got some of the 4mm in the white, and then I also have a black 6mm that I'll use later on for the riser for the staircase to ensure that it's stable and sturdy. I'm using a tool to remove some of the material along the flutes to make it fold easily along those edges. And then also just cutting out any areas that are going to be in the way as the staircase folds. I could just tape everything, but I do want to go ahead and actually screw some areas, so I'm going to just pre-drill, of course, and bolt everything on, and then go back to the Gorilla Tape for the edges because it's so nice and easy. It sticks quite well. So there it is. That's kind of how it's going to function. It's all screwed together in one piece to be a winding staircase. And this is that 6mm, and I'm just building a riser that these can screw onto. The 6mm is very, very sturdy stuff, and it's a little bit harder to cut, of course, but it is definitely a durable option for supporting the staircase. And just continuing with the mix of bolting and taping, depending on what seems easier. I kind of like the look of the bolts, though. It's a little bit kind of an industrial look with the Coroplast. It's sort of interesting. And then trying to clean this up a little bit, I've cut some kind of covering edges out of 4mm in black just to try to make this look a little bit cooler and support it well and keep it from being floppy around the edges. Although I'm going to have to do something else later on, obviously, to enclose it. But there's the staircase, functional portion where they're actually going to walk. But now we need to build the supports for the corners so that they don't just fall right off and flop down, because there's definitely still some bend to that Coroplast. So I've cut some 6mm supports for each of the corners. And now I'm bolting everything to that, along with some more of that scrap plastic I had in there just to enclose it but still allow easy viewing because I like watching the piggies. They're very cute. And then at the back, I'm adding a panel that slides in and out just to make sure that it's easier to clean. For the stairs, that Coroplast is quite slippery. So I got some of this shelf liner stuff from the home improvement store that seems like it'll give them a little more grip. And it's also plastic, so it won't absorb anything. It'll kind of block out any corners, hopefully keep any piggy poos from falling in there. And then on the ramp parts, they're a little bit on the steep side, so I had some single-walled Coroplast that had a nice texture to it that should be even easier to crawl up than the contact plastic stuff. And that's that. That's all put together. I just added some little tunnels to connect the two pieces, and it just slides right in, and they can just jump up and run up and down. And it's pretty cool, I wouldn't say it's the most beautiful setup at this point, but I'm really, again, just going for function at this point, and I'll dress it up later on. Just put some temporary doors on there also. And at this point, I discovered that they really, really like the ramp. In fact, they like it a little bit too much. So now the problem is that they want to run in there and go to the one spot where you absolutely can't reach them and just hang out there and poop and pee and eat. So that's a little bit of a problem. I'm not sure that this was really the best idea, so I'm going to be doing some revamping. But for now, they're at least safe and comfortable. And they really, again, they just want to sit in the stairs there and poo. And pee. And let me tell you what, Mr. Baggins, when he pees, it's messy. The guinea pigs are pretty impressive as to what they can actually, jump up onto and run around on. I've discovered they're more agile than I would have expected. I haven't had guinea pigs for many years, but they can jump pretty well. I'm going to definitely do some more work on this, do some 3D printed stuff for the doors, some hardware. I want to make this a little bit more Hobbity themed, since I've gone with a Hobbity theme on their names. And also, again, this staircase, it looks pretty cool and it's fun to watch them run around on it. In the end, it's not really all that practical because I didn't make it intending for them to sit there all day with all of their poo and pee. Ranger here just wants to sit there and eat his apple and nibble his hay and run away if you get anywhere near. They're a little bit skittish. The cages have all the nice absorbent material, but the ramp doesn't so much, so that's not really going to work in the end. But the good part of making it modular like that with the PVC is I can reorient the pieces as much as I want, stack them differently to get a different design until I find something that works. So I will be doing more work with this later. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.
There's something moving under the plastic. Ah, Xander! What are you doing under there? Silly dog. Xander, you're gonna pull the whole thing down and the weeds will come in. Okay, that's a much better plan. Go explore the ferns. See you later.